what I've created is so magical, in the best kind of ways. It's designed for the benefit of the 8 billion hardworking people of the world. This is my gift to humanity. It's important for people to know that I don't own any of it. I don't profit from any of it, nor do I profit from Bitcoin. Everything I'm doing is for the people. It's not for me whatsoever. This is everything from a new monetary system to people's money to cryptocurrency to digital asset management to tokenizing the stock market.
I just wanted to sit down with you and talk to you further about your why and what inspired you to start working on the technology and the blockchain specifically. So what was your catalyst?
Yeah, people aren't really going to like the answer because it's not what they expect. I've done a lot of work for Fortune 500 companies. I've done a lot of SQL Server performance tuning, how do you get more out of it? And the failover or the fault tolerance for SQL Server back in, let's say, 2005, 2006, is an active passive. One SQL Server running, you're writing all the data to that and querying from that. And you have another one, the passive, so active and passive. This one does nothing. It's just waiting for this one to break. So if this one breaks, hey, great, that takes over. But let's say you're a big company and you spend $50,000 on one server, and then you buy another one just to sit there and do nothing. Well, that doesn't really make a lot of sense. But that's always been the model. That's how it's worked. Active passive. Yeah, I was hopeful that they were going to solve for a multi-master write, but they didn't. So I had already been working on a solution for that. Because after doing this work over and over for years and years for these companies, it's like, wow, you're just wasting money. It would make a lot more sense where all the servers you have on the network, whether that's 2 or 10 or 100, where you'd be able to write information, new information, to any of them, and then they synchronize, they replicate amongst themselves to ensure that there's a gold master, but that exists on all of them. So you can then make queries to any of them and get an accurate result. So what I was actually solving for is multiple write masters on a network. In order to test the replication works, is information getting to all the individual nodes? The smallest, simplest thing I could do was I didn't need to replicate a phone book or anything, just a number, just a value, just one single value. If I write a value here and it shows up, boom, there, and there, great. My proof of concept works. Well, he also had the financial crisis at the time. I ended up connecting with somebody online about a fountain pen, which is actually kind of ridiculous, but this is the most oddball stuff ever. But yeah, I connected with somebody about a fountain pen, and he was like, hey, you could probably use this stuff for electronic cash. I'm like, I'm just doing corporate data. But I took a look at some work that other people had done. So I was like, well, I'm just synchronizing one value. A wallet is just a balance. It's not individual coins. It's just a balance in a wallet. So, it's kind of electronic cash thing. So it morphed into that. But the origins were just multi-master write on a network.
How has the evolution of technology influenced your personal philosophy and goals?
Releasing the source code as open source is the greatest mistake of my life. I'm not responsible for people's financial pains, miseries, and otherwise. So no, I'm not liable. Don't sue me. Things like that. But releasing the source code to open source, it never should have seen the light of day. It really should not. Like I said, there were multiple hard architectural fails. It did not have the right DNA to be a global financial infrastructure. I was solving for multi-master write on a network for data. Using it for electronic cash or money, that's a byproduct of the original intent. But then releasing the source code as open source, that community just pushed out to the world without a fully executed software development lifecycle, without proper scaling, testing. Yeah, let's talk about Satoshi's treasure for a second. The 1 million Bitcoins that Satoshi has. Well, it's actually 1,112,050. That's the actual number. But it never should have existed. Let me explain why. The network turns on January 3rd, 2009. Okay? I'm talking about Bitcoin. If my computer is the only computer on the network doing mining, and there are no real transactions, great. Mine a block, get a 50 Bitcoin block reward. Congratulations. And it goes for 20,000 or so blocks. There's no real data. There's no real transactions. Nothing's actually happening. But that block reward is being issued every time. When the open source community released Bitcoin, what they should have done, personal opinion, is say, hey, we're going to set a date that we're going to release this for public use. Let's just say hypothetically January 1st, 2010. And in the meantime, we're going to test it. We're going to try to scale it. We're going to try and solve the hard architectural fails that they knew was in there from my comments and my source code. But when they did, what they should have done is truncated the blockchain, created a new Genesis block, and start from there. So, the whole Satoshi's treasure, in my opinion, that's test data. It never should have existed. They weren't real transactions. It wasn't until, like I should say, Bitcoin Pizza Day, if you're going to choose some sort of milestone, it wasn't until then that people really were associating any actual value to it. I mean, even if you just want to say the first 6 months, 7 months, 9 months, of 2009, there was no real transactions, no real data. So Satoshi's treasure should never have existed in the first place. It will never be sold.
So we'll also take those as lessons learned in creating Bitcoin. But
yeah.
Is there anything else that might have shaped you, shaped the development of Fractal?
Fractal came about, I was able to solve another problem, the holy grail of decentralized finance, or decentralized computing, I should say. When you scale something, when you make something larger, you're always making compromises. If I increase scale, do I give up consistency of the data? Like something's accurate here but not accurate there. Like for example, let's say you use your social media and you post a picture to social media. Maybe that picture shows up on your device a second later, but on your device, it doesn't show up for an hour. That's called eventual consistency. Eventually, all the nodes of the network will be consistent. A strong consistency means that they're in sync and the data is going to be the same. If you're dealing with money, people's finances, people went to a job, they worked, they earned money. There can't be mistakes. There can't be errors, and there can't be things like eventual consistency because that leads to the double spend. Let's say there's just 3, not even millions or thousands of miners, but just 3, okay? This one has the right information, these 2 don't. You go to execute a transaction, I'm going to buy something online for 100 Bitcoin or whatever currency. And it hits this server and this one has the right information, cool. But then almost instantaneously, you execute another transaction to spend that same money and it hits a different server and this one says, oh yeah, you have the money too, cool, yeah. That's a double spend. So eventual consistency doesn't work when it comes to money and finance. You need strong consistency. It needs to ensure that as soon as something happens on any of those nodes, it's replicated to all the nodes. Also referred to as a Byzantine generals problem. Blockchain and Bitcoin was not a solution for that. It prevents or helps to prevent the double spend, but it never solved that problem. That was kind of the unsolvable problem, because as you increase in scale, like we go from a few computers on a network to now we have all around the world, and more and more people using it. So as you increase scale, you're going to have performance and consistency to deal with. Is it going to run faster? Is it going to run slower? It's basically a triangle. So as you increase any of those 3 sides, the other 2 are going to respond accordingly. It doesn't just magically just get larger in volume. Well, that's the impossible problem. But I was able to solve that with Fractal. So Fractal exists on a global scale. It does solve for the double spend with the Venom protocol. So there is no possibility. So it is strong consistency globally, even though it's on a global scale and still processes and executes transactions in less than a second. The workaround with Bitcoin is basically that's why it's 10 minutes for every block to be written, in simple terms. Yeah, okay, everybody's gonna say, well, there's more going on under the, yeah, okay. But in very simple terms, if you slow down the network to write a block every 10 minutes, that gives time for all the miners to be in sync so there's strong consistency of the data. So if somebody tries to execute a double spend, it helps to prevent that, but it's not really a solution, it's a workaround.
How can Fractal improve the lives of everyday hardworking people around the world?
Transactions are a fixed fee. It's 10 cents per transaction. Spent a long time modeling, scaling, and testing the hives, hive workers. I mean, as I said, this has been a 12-year effort. So I have 3 solid years of hives, both here in co-locations and other places that have been up and running that are executing transactions, simulating load, simulating test, the correct way to do software development. The number that seemed to come out in terms of today's value, today's dollars, like if you're using US dollars as an example, is 10 cents. So every transaction is 10 cents, is always 10 cents. It's never more. Transactions are settled in less than a second. That means it's viable for retail use. I can go to the store, I can buy milk, eggs, groceries, pay with a currency powered by Fractal, such as Vertisan, and I can be walking out the door less than a second later. So it's viable for transactions, for retail. There is no inflation. So it's a hedge against inflation. If you go to work and you earn money and it's direct deposited in your bank account, next year is worth less, and the next year is worth less. Your buying power goes down. So it's like you're filling a strainer all the time. With the decentralized infrastructure that I created, there is no inflation. Any money that is put into there as equitable value is always going to be worth that. And you could think of it like feeding your family. Like 1,000 years ago, a chicken would feed your family for dinner for the evening. 1,000 years later, chicken's still a chicken. How much we pay for it has changed. But that's not because the chicken became more valuable. It's because the instrument used to buy the chicken has less value. That's the basic idea of inflation. So there is no inflation with anything powered by Fractal. So the value that you earn today by going out and doing your job, that value is always going to exist. So when you're ready for retirement, whether you want to pass it down to the next generation, that value is always going to be there. You don't have to try to fight inflation. Viable for retail, protection against inflation, easy to use. I showed you don't need necessarily devices. You can do it without devices, you do it with devices. It's easily digestible by people, everyday people. You don't have to understand cryptocurrency or anything else to be able to use it. Fast, settles, protection against inflation, simple, easy to use. The value of what I've created, I think, speaks for itself. It's easy to understand. I can go to the store and I can buy milk and eggs. I walk out the door less than a second later, and I'm not fighting inflation, and my money holds its value. And it's totally anonymous. This restores all the lost liberties that people have been suffering from for generations. I believe that the technology will speak for itself. And so mass adoption, people will be very happy with this creation.
You've spoken a lot about responsibility and power.
What has stemmed from the technology I created and released as open source has caused me endless pain. I mean, it hurts my soul. All of the shit coins and meme coins and the scams, and I mean, people are being taken advantage of. People are losing their money. They're being exploited. And that goes against every principle that I have. Everything I do is to give back and to help people. So the fact that all of those things happen and have happened, it kills me. It just eats me alive. That's why primarily for these last few years, I switched to living on a 42-hour day, which I've told you about before, because there just wasn't enough time in the day. I work for 32 hours straight, sometimes 34, sometimes 36, take a shower, have some food, do whatever, but then I sleep for 8 hours, and I rinse and repeat. I live on a 42-hour day, and I've been doing that for 3 years now, because there wasn't enough time in the day. And as I said, I created all of this myself. Every last line of coding, everything about it is all me. Every day that goes by, the people are being hurt, and I know that I have the answer. I know that I have the solution. So I literally work myself to death to get to where we are now, where it's ready for the world and ready to be used.
Do you see Fractal as a tool for social change? And if so, how?
Well, how would you define social change?
Well, you spoke to me briefly before we started this whole process about how you wanted to donate a lot to organizations that...
Fractal is designed and architected to prevent people from even having the opportunity or the ability to scam people or to take advantage of people. Now, this is all about personal liberties and restoring people's control over their own lives, to not be subjugated, to not be exploited, whether that be by large organizations and institutions or just by individuals and small groups, scammers or people that are trying to take advantage. Everything I've created that I've spent 12 years of my life in total secrecy, at my own expense, everything I've created is to prevent that, is to stop that. So in that regard, yes, I think it does represent a lot of social change. It helps people be more honest, have greater integrity, be more forthright with what they're doing. Personally, I will be personally working on this for probably another 6 years for my full vision to be out there. Is it functional? Yes. Does it work? Hell yeah. Has it worked for the last 2+ years? Yes. Test. You know, when you're dealing with people's money, you know, that they went to like I said, they went to a job, they worked hard, they earned their money. You can't play games with that. Everything has to be right. There can't be holes, there can't be vulnerabilities. Yeah, some people get frustrated with me. We started this group chat so I can get feedback about what I've created from people so I can help to improve it. Yes, people are anxious. They want to use it. And I try to explain to them, everything has to be perfect. This is people's money. This is real stuff. This is not a game. So yes, I'm going to spend years continuing to work on it and to improve everything and to make it better. It's handled by an automated market maker. So it's an algorithm that determines the market price. And it uses federated liquidity pools. So the liquidity pool is just a mechanism that says we have one store of value here, we have one store of value there. So we'll have Vertisan here, and maybe there's a liquidity pool where the other half is like USDC. As more USDC comes in and people buy Vertisan, there's less, so market price goes up. It's an automated market maker algorithm that does that. There are no human beings that determine the market price. The market itself does. But Fractal implements federated liquidity pools, which is also something new and unique in the industry. Existing crypto, like if you go to one centralized exchange and you look at the price of, we'll just say Bitcoin, okay? You'll get X. If you, at the same time, go to another exchange and look at the price of Bitcoin, it's gonna be different. Might not be much different, but it's different.
How do you view the impact of centralized exchanges, mining companies, and meme coins on the broader crypto ecosystem?
Federated liquidity pools, they're all participating as a federated unit, which means there is a single source of truth regarding the market price, which means is protection for the consumer. You don't go over here and somebody's doing arbitrage trading and taking advantage over there. No matter what liquidity pool you go to, the price is always the price. There's always a single source of truth. Well, the liquidity pools are totally anonymous and autonomous. So if somebody else out there wants to stand up a liquidity pool, great. It just becomes part of the federated liquidity pools. It's still gonna have a single source of truth. There is no cheating. There is no taking advantage of people. There is no obfuscation of the price. Market price is market price. And that's determined by supply and demand from the consumers. So it doesn't matter if you go over here to get it, or over there to get it, or over there to get it. It's always going to be the same price. And yes, the market price goes up and down according to supply and demand. And every transaction is only 10 cents because it's powered by Fractal. Back to the predictable workload and the Hive workers and the neural compute unit and so on and so forth. 10 cents is always 10 cents. It never changes. Like as it stands now, you go to send some cryptocurrency from one place to another. It's like, oh, hey, the fee is $5.73. Oh my gosh. You look at it again 30 seconds later. Oh, it's $3.12. What? And another minute later, oh, it's $8. What? It's like, that's ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense. The whole concept of not knowing the price of something until after you purchase it, that doesn't make any sense. None of this was intended to ever be used by the world. There were many architectural fails that needed to be solved for before it was ever going to be ready for public use. Fractal is the solution for all of those things. I spent 12 years of my life creating it.
What are some of the biggest challenges you faced during the 12 years of development?
Staying alive. Yeah, there's been 4 attempts in my life, so staying alive that's a big thing. As I've already told you, I have bodyguards 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I basically live in a gilded cage. I don't go outside. I don't go anywhere. I sit at my desk and I work and I make stuff, which is great. I mean, I love doing this, what I do, but it's not a life I would really wish on people. Move around a lot, tear everything down, set it up somewhere else. This is like secret laboratory number 9, just in the last few years. Yeah, that's definitely a great challenge. As a result of, we'll say the difficulties, I've spent 184 days in the hospital, just in the last few years alone. I still get work done in the hospital, but yeah, it's not fun. Yeah, there's been many obstacles along this way. This has not been an easy path to follow or to stay on. As I said, this is my legacy for the world. That's a full hive. Well, each one's an individual neuron. Yeah, so a hive has 7 neurons, always 7. And there are other ones that have 19. So if there's another Another ring of neurons around the outside. Then, 12, 6, 1. So that'd be 19. So that's a 7 neuron hive right there, which is the 6 around the outside and the mediator. But they're all individual neurons on the neural network. Yeah, this is pretty cool. So this is a e-passport. This as an example. So the Vertisan card uses the cryptocurrency for a native payment network, and that's a built-in fingerprint scanner. The idea is that everything I made needed to be easy for the average person to use, day-to-day use. So the underlying technology for the new tech, Fractal, processes transactions in less than a second at global scale. It can do 34 billion at the same time. This little device, this is cool though. So let's say hypothetically, because the idea is, I want everything to be totally anonymous, but there's certain transactions that you make, purchases you make, where it requires identity. Every transaction is anonymous, yes. But with the chip and with the card, you can have e-passports on there as well. So if you want to execute a transaction that does require strong identity, like buying a car, buying a house, the network and the card can know, this needs to provide additional identity. That's what this device does. This is for creating and managing e-passport stuff. But of course, the user would know ahead of time, this is something that's going to require my identification. This is not going to be an anonymous purchase. But it only does that if it is mandatory and necessary, and the user is notified. But I solve for all the scenarios, all the use cases. How do you have it anonymous as much as possible, but then still be compliant with laws in whatever country somebody lives in? Here's another one, Raspberry Pi 5, another neuron. But the purpose is to demonstrate that what I created is supposed to be consumed by average people. Like, hey, you go buy a Raspberry Pi, you spend less than $200, you put it on your bookshelf, and it's earning money for that person. Not big mining farms, not conglomerates or corporations or things like that. It's like, oh, hey, I'll get one for my son or my daughter and put it on their bookshelf, and they can watch it, earn money for their college education. When somebody has a hive worker neuron on their shelf, it's not just a lottery where maybe you make zero, maybe you make something. It's always going to be a predictable workload. The network allocates licenses as they are needed. So there aren't more hive workers on the network than what's needed, which also means from that predictable workload, everybody who has a license is going to be earning money. The license is a NFT. The hive worker won't function without the license. So you can see this one here. See the little card reader plugged in? Right. You take out the card, it's not going to work. So that ensures that there's the right number of neurons on the network to do the work, to do the transaction processing. Like I said, routed traffic, predictable workload. If you have a license, it's kind of like a liquor license, they have for bars, where this is an NFT digital asset. So if you decided, hey, I don't want to do this anymore, you could sell the license, the hive worker license, just like a liquor license, same kind of thing. And this will have value because there's only a limited number on the network, and it's guaranteed to make money. So there's a concept that I call decentralization entropy, which basically, if I back up a couple steps, so Bitcoin, as you see it now, really has been captured. There's huge mining conglomerates, big companies. They're traded on the stock exchange. It's not what you call decentralized. It's more centralized. As the companies get bigger and they have more and more control of the network, it is possible for them to pool the resources and decide what happens on the network. It's getting more and more centralized as time goes on. Like you said, new people can't compete at all. So Fractal works the opposite way. With the with the neurons and the hive workers, as they're called. As the network gets larger and more people use it and more hive workers are needed, it increases the decentralization to a point of entropy. It's always going to be more and more and more decentralized as time goes on. So it's literally impossible for it to be captured. Those cards you're holding, that's like the equivalent of paper money. Individual denominations, that's totally anonymous cash. So like, this would be the equivalent of like a US $100 bill. You know, paper money. Yes, this is plastic, so people think, oh, it's a credit card. It's not. It's just like paper cash, fixed denomination, totally anonymous. There's an NFT digital asset that resides in the Liberty Treasury. Kind of like back when the US was on the gold standard. You had, for example, a $100 note, and it would say on it, pay to the bearer on demand, and that was backed by gold. So technically you could take that to the bank and give them the $100 note, and they would be obligated to give you $100 worth of gold. And then they would tear up the note because it's no longer in circulation. This is the same thing. So there's an NFT digital asset for 100 Liberty dollars in the Liberty Treasury. And this card is the physical manifestation of that. But let's say you go to the store where, I don't know, you're going to buy something for, I don't know, 99 Liberty dollars. Like, oh, I want to use this. They could give you that back, or they could give you $1 on the reloadable. But when I set out to create a monetary system for the world, it had to do exactly what money does now. Right. And I solved for what I call the 100-year problem. Let's say hypothetically you have a, I don't know, a quarter or a dollar US that's 100 years old. I can still go to the store, use that, pay for something. It's still going to work exactly the same, still going to be accepted. Transaction still happens just as quickly. Nothing's any different 100 years from now than it was then, except for the price of the goods that you're purchasing. But the monetary instrument is still just as functional. If I was going to replace money, which is what the goal of this is, it has to do what money does now. So one of those features is the ability for it to be completely anonymous and tangible. You can have a $20 bill, $50 bill, $100 bill, put it in your pocket, and you can use that amongst yourselves as a carrier of value. And people say, yes, great, when we execute and trade accordingly. But that's totally anonymous. There's no record or trail of that transaction. And of course, when you, let's say when you get paid from your job and somebody has electronic deposit, okay, well that's trackable. That's not anonymous. Know exactly who it went from, who the recipient was, how much was the amount. So that's another way that money is used now. So if I'm going to make a monetary system that replaces money, it has to do everything that money does now. You can't have a subset of features and say, oh, this is money. So that's why these exist. This is the totally anonymous, human peer-to-peer transaction of a carrier of value, of money. And like I said, the reason that they're cards is because this is secured by the network. There is an NFT digital asset that represents that this card is representative of. There are literally more security features built into this than there is a US $100 bill. This cannot be counterfeited, can't be hacked, can't be cracked. It's the safest, most secure money ever created. We can't think about the rest of the world being in the same scenarios that we're in here in the United States or in Europe, where people have smartphones, they have devices. Most of the world, they don't have smartphones or devices. And if they do, maybe it's shared amongst a family, not amongst, everybody has their own. So the idea of, oh, you need to have authentication on your device and send from this device to that device. Great, that's convenient for some of the world, but not everybody. So once again, if I'm going to make a monetary system for the 8 billion hardworking people of the world, not the elite of the world, or just the most technologically advanced, then it has to solve for everybody. So for all those other areas of the world, like here, this is a Vertisan card. It doesn't require a phone, a device, or anything else. It's a payment medium that can be used by people that don't have those technologies. And there's other methods for, I guess what you call like a two-factor authentication. It's like, I could use this card, I don't need a phone or anything else, but I could say, maybe I went to the public library and set up my account and got everything squared away, but I said, I want to make sure I have a key, a third-party key. So something like this, plug in your phone, but also if you're at a merchant, the merchant's accepting payment for something, you can, like this one has NFC and a fingerprint, so people are not bound to their phones and their devices and everything else. I don't need a phone to pay with this because that's biometric. All I need is the card. I'm authorized, I'm the right person, I can execute. Reloadable, no device needed for that either, to be able to receive, change, to put on it, or to use it. Like I said, if you want to pair it with any of these FIDO devices, FITO, yes, I had to solve for everything that money does now, and to replicate that in order to say, yes, I created a monetary system, basically the people's money for the world that people can use, that makes sense. Does everything that money does now, but also will work in 100 years. Back to my 100-year problem, same thing. Whatever you have in digital assets now, 100 years from now, they're still going to be safe, they're still going to be secure, still going to be active.